So, what makes a game retro nowadays? It's something that I've been struggling with recently. Yeah, let's talk about it. I have been struggling with this question that seems super simple on the surface, but the more I think about it, the more complicated it gets. When is a game considered retro? This used to be a no brainer for me. If you're new to the channel, I have about a 20-year gap in from when I stopped playing video games to when I started again about 4 years ago. So for me, retro was always basically anything cartridge based, right? So your NES, your Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, you can even go back further and throw in things like the Atari 2600 or even the ColecoVision, which I owned as a kid. But now thinking, since it's been about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer since I stopped playing my PlayStation 2, is that considered retro? And does retro just mean old, or is there something else to it? I want to talk about this from a few different angles because depending on who you are or who you ask, the answer might change. Every time I think I have the answer to this, something comes up and messes it up. For example, I used to think games had to be, at least two generations old, two console generations old. But if that were the case, would the Switch become retro when the Switch 2 comes out? That doesn't feel right. And what about graphic style? Pixel art feels retro, but what about like HD 2D games, something like Octopath Traveler? That basically looks like a souped up Super Nintendo game, but it's a modern game. Or what about all these new games that are coming out using old retro mechanics like the whole homebrew scene or even things like Shovel Knight? Those are not retro games, but they definitely feel retro. What's your definition of retro? Drop a comment below because I really like to know where everybody stands on this. I think one of the big reasons retro is so hard to define is everybody's different, right? Everybody's a different age. If you're as old as me, it was easy. Retro's NES, cartridge based games. But if you're in your 30s, late 20s, something like that, the PS2 can even feel retro. Heck, even like Xbox 360, all those consoles in that generation can feel retro to them too. I find it interesting too. A lot of the streamers out there now that are playing what they consider retro games are streaming games from like the PS2 or Xbox 360 era. And personally, when I jump into a stream, if it's labeled retro, I'm expecting to see something like Super Mario Brothers, Castlevania, something from the NES or even the 16-bit era. And it just, I don't know, it doesn't feel quite right. In fact, I saw somebody streaming, I think it was like Grand Theft Auto, but they considered themselves a retro streamer, and it kind of hurt my soul a little bit to think of Grand Theft Auto as a retro game, even though I know it came out on the PS2, but these big, long, open world games, they don't, to me, fit that retro feeling. Just to take a step back, the real reason I'm struggling with this is I do stream myself, and I do two types of streams. I stream something from my backlog. For example, I just finished Breath of the Wild not too long ago, and I played that primarily on stream from start to finish in its entirety. But then I also really like to do retro streams. So I kind of split up my days where one day I'll do my backlog game and then the second day I'll do a quote retro game. And I started sneaking games like PS2 games, like I just did Shadow of the Colossus not too long ago. And right now I'm playing Zack and Wiki during my retro stream times. And I feel like I'm really missing playing what I would consider a retro game. For example, Shadow of the Colossus took me like, I don't know, a couple months worth of play sessions on during my retro streams to finish that one from start to finish. Where something like Adventure Island only took me like, I don't know, 3 play sessions to get all the way through it. And now that I'm doing more retro streaming in like the PS2 Wii era, for example, right now I'm also playing Zack and Wiki. I just feel like those games aren't quite retro to me. I feel like once you get to a certain amount of time, it kind of feels like it should fit more into my backlog streams than my retro game streams. And I feel like I'm missing out on playing some of my classic NES games and Super Nintendo games that I hadn't got to play in my childhood. So yeah, I definitely think game length plays a part in it. At least it does for me. When I feel like playing a retro game, I think about something that I can sit down, play for a few hours, and even if I'm good at it, play it for an hour, 2 hours, and finish it from start all the way to the end. Where if you're looking at something from the PS2, some of those games, even though they're older, they're can be, 20, 30-hour campaigns. Not that there's not longer games for like the NES and Super Nintendo. Some of those RPGs could get lengthy as well, but it's just, there was still something that felt a little bit easier and relaxing about them. And when I say relaxing, I'm not talking about difficulty, because we all know that NES games can be super difficult. And that's another thing to consider, is difficulty. Does difficulty play a role in all this? Thinking back at some of the NES games, some of those were super crazy hard, and we still have some of those games now, like an Elden Ring or some of these other big open world games that really test your skill. But then there's also a lot of modern games that might be 30, 40, 50 hours plus long that have like an easy mode that are a little bit more relaxing and easier to play through, even though they take longer. I'm kind of curious too to hear what a younger audience feels is retro, because I know with the explosion of the retro game collecting community, there are younger generations playing these retro games. I mean, even modern games that are being made in a retro style kind of fit that bill to kind of make a younger generation say, hey, I wonder what a retro game looked like. And if they have parents like me that want to play old retro games, they can get in there too. So it's interesting to me what they might consider retro as well now. I don't think there's an actual right answer to this question. I think it all depends on the individual. Personally, myself, I think I've decided just through this discussion that I really want to get back into playing more 8-bit and 16-bit games, and really want to save my retro streams for that. I just feel like I'm really missing out, and I'm going to move like the PS2 era games and up that I haven't played more into my backlog of games that I need to play. Just for the time constraint alone, I feel like I can get more games completed if I stick to like my 8-bit and 16-bit era games, which is really where my passion lies, if I'm being honest with you. But I think it's a super interesting topic to discuss. What I'd really like to do is leave this question to you. And I want to know from all different age groups as well, what do you consider retro? Are you a younger viewer that still wants to get into playing some of these old NES games, or do you consider those kind of old dinosaurs that aren't even worth playing anymore? I'm pretty confident that if you're around my age, you're going to tell me NES, Super Nintendo, kind of that generation, just like I'm feeling. But I want to know from everybody what you consider retro. I think it's a great discussion to have, just a fun topic to discuss. So anyway, if you like what we're doing here, please consider liking, subscribing, all that kind of fun YouTube stuff. That's it. We will see you in the next video. Late.